we need to talk about the U.S. men's national soccer team and the shit they pulled off on Tuesday night against Trinidad and Tobago. What in the hell was that? All these guys needed was 1 point, one measly point against the worst team in CONCACAF to make the elimination stage. That's all they had to do. There were 27 different possible outcomes between the U.S., Trinidad and Tobago, Panama, Honduras, Mexico, and Costa Rica. 26 of those would have ended up putting the U.S. national team in the World Cup. The only one that would have kept them out is if Panama won, Honduras won, and the Nats lost. And that's precisely what happened. Jesus effing. I mean, this is just a giant fustercluck of biblical proportions. And I hate to say this, but you've probably figured it out long before, just as I have. This really is a culmination of many things, okay? This is not just about Tuesday night and the loss to Trinidad and Tobago. You should have seen this coming for the last 15 or 20 years, regardless of what the prior World Cup results have been, prior Gold Cups, Confederation Cups, all that stuff. You should have seen it coming. You absolutely should have. And here's why. If you look at the U.S., when they first broke into the World Cup in 1990, the teams from 87 to 89 that got themselves in position to get themselves that bid in 1990 after 40 years of futility was largely a result of something going right that really shouldn't have. It was a bunch of players that they threw a lot of money at, the Tab Ramoses, the John Harks, all those types of players. And they got in the 90 World Cup and they thought, gee, whatever we were doing, this must be the way to do things because it worked. Look, it got us in the 90 World Cup. Well, the problem is they didn't have a big enough data set to look at. And they made a big mistake. And what they started doing, and I was actually involved in this because in a former life, I actually played soccer. I was going through the Olympic development program and all that crap, and it was a giant bureaucracy. It was just totally the absolute worst way you could run a soccer development system. And what they did was they force-fed kids into the system. Some didn't want to be there, some half-assed wanted to be there, and then a few really wanted to be there. And they made you try out for all the ODP stuff, and they would hold eligibility for your high school or club teams against you if you didn't do it. And they would bring all these players together, and then they would try to find the best players out of thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands around the country, and then find, 50 or 100 of them, and then just invest the living shit out of them when they're 13, 14 years old. And hopefully by the time they're 25, they're international superstars. Well, there's kind of a problem with that. Actually, there's several problems with that. And finally, Tuesday night, we pretty much saw the result of that. What happens when you put that much money into players that young, who all develop at different rates, some peak earlier than others, some peak later than others, some don't peak at all. What you see when they're 12 or 13 perhaps is just their natural raw athleticism showing off, that they were born with, some God-given talent, and they simply don't have a work rate and a work ethic. So by the time they're 19, 20 years old, they're not the same player you thought they were. Yet at the same time, all these other players who are growing up more conventionally, playing conventional soccer with their club team, going to high school, perhaps going to college, you're paying no attention to those players who've had to work for everything they've gotten for a living and haven't been thrown millions of dollars at them and flown around the world to play international soccer matches when they're 15 years old. So hopefully one day they can play for the full national team. You're forgetting all those players. So what happens is it almost becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. You invest all this time and money into these players when they're really young, and when they get to full national team age, 20, 25 years old, and they've underperformed, you feel like you've invested so much time and money into these players that you can't get rid of them. You've got too much into them. They almost own you as much as you own them. And so you don't want to just cut them loose and let them go, because that's pretty much an admission that, hey, all of our training, all the money we threw at this kid, it was for naught. We made a mistake. We made an error in skills. We thought he could do the job. We thought we could put money into him and train him to become the player we thought he could be. It didn't happen for whatever reason. Maybe it was bad training or coaching. Maybe the kid was incorrigible. Maybe he just didn't have the drive to be a full national team member. And by the time he got to be 16 or 17, he just wanted to be a regular kid and go to high school or go to college or whatever. So you put all this money and time into a very small group of kids. And then when some of those don't pan out, you're held hostage to them, because you feel like if you just cut them loose, you've just wasted years and years of time and effort with these kids. And so then you've got other kids, like I said, grew up, they played high school ball, they went to college. These are the players that have had to earn everything they've gotten out of soccer, okay? They've had to work to just get a scholarship to go to college. They had to work it on their high school team or their club teams. You know, if they were late to practice, their coach wasn't a media celebrity who had to worry about, their kids' endorsements, their players getting on magazine covers and stuff like that. If you're late to practice, you didn't play. That was the way it was. You had to earn everything you got at that level, and it built a thicker skin for you. And these thicker skin kids are the ones that have been put aside for these fashionista players, these highlight players who want to do all the juggling ball tricks in the world, but don't have enough on-field vision to make a simple wall pass or triangle pass to free somebody open for a goal, or they don't have a work rate. This is how you get players like Josie Altidore, who is an immense physical talent. He's an immense soccer talent. He's got unbelievable upside and potential, and he's scored a lot of goals. But he hasn't scored a lot of goals because of all those things. He's scored them in spite of them. He's been lazy for 10 years. The guy he's one of the greatest cherry pickers in the world next to Kobe Jones. And Kobe Jones rewrote the book on cherry picking. But Josie Altidore, he doesn't get any punishment. He keeps getting put in the starting lineups. He plays a full 90 when he's loafing it in the 5th minute, just like he loafed it in the 90th minute against Trinidad. It was embarrassing. It's absolutely embarrassing for somebody like that to be on the field for the U.S. national team and an elimination game to get to the World Cup. I mean, when you put on that U.S. national team jersey, you ought to feel like you're putting on armor and you're invincible. And you're going out there and you're playing the absolute best you can possibly play and the hardest you can possibly play it. And we're missing out on those kind of players. I've known players personally who have played in MLS. Guys who have personally gotten caps on the national team. I've seen some of these kids from the time they were in high school and have followed them, their progression through college, to the pros, to the national team. I know them. And unless you're in the system, you're out of the system. That's how U.S. soccer works. If you aren't identified early in your career as a 12, 13, 14-year-old, your chances of getting into the federation and getting into the training camps in order to make your mark at the full national team when you're 25 or 30 years old are next to zero. Zero. If they don't think you're going to show potential at 14, they don't think you're going to be very good at 25. And that's just the way they run things. And there are so many great players out there in high school and college ranks and go through the more conventional process. They develop a thicker skin. They work hard. They haven't been told their entire lives that their shit doesn't stink. They don't drink their own bathwater. They don't read their own press clippings. And they go out there and they have a work ethic. And that's all American soccer fans are asking for. Just go out there and give me 90 minutes of the best that you have. Instead of loafing it around. And when you get beat for a ball, you don't make a second effort to get it back. Or you stand and watch as a teammate tries to make a tackle rather than you trying to help them make the same tackle. It's just pathetic. And that's what we've gotten to. That's what Tuesday night was about. And when you have this culture where you're only bringing in players at an early age to try to develop them and stick with them until they're 25 or 30, you feel like if you can't win with those players, you can't win with anyone. And what happens is you stick with them too long. It seems like every World Cup, we've got a half a dozen players on the World Cup roster who should have been let go after the last World Cup. We always got 6 or 8 players that are playing one World Cup too long. The Tab Ramoses, the John Harks, the Kobe Jones. Hey, Landon Donovan, as great as he was, he played enough World Cups. He played the exact number of World Cups that he needed to play. We don't need to hang on to him like Thomas Dooley or somebody like that, or throw in a Preki and try to win with guys who are too old and have lost their desire to win. We need younger players. We need players who are hungry. That's the problem. We don't have players that are hungry because the federation doesn't identify players that are hungry. They just want the guys that look good, that can do all the fancy ball tricks with their feet and toss the ball around and do headers and stuff like that for the camera. That's all great. That might sell ad time, okay? That might sell magazine covers. That doesn't win soccer games. Doing the basics wins soccer games, okay? When you want to win, it's not sometimes the things you do on the field, it's the things you don't do. It's being reliable. It's being steady every game. It's not making mistakes. It's not doing the fancy stuff. It's just doing the basics, the soccer basics, the defending, staying goal side, wall passes, triangles, covering for your teammates, making an extra effort, winning 50-50 balls, winning head balls. You do those things, winning takes care of itself, okay? The United States is never going to have the natural raw ability of countries like Germany, Argentina, Brazil. It's never going to happen. We started too late. It's, in my lifetime at least, it's never going to happen. So you have to make up the gap somewhere. And in order to make up that gap, there's really only one place you can get it, and that's work ethic, work rate. Effort is a skill. And unfortunately, we don't have enough players on the roster. We don't have enough players on the field that demonstrate that. And if you watch the Trinidad and Tobago game, it was an absolute shitstorm for 90 minutes. You could tell in the first 5 minutes we weren't going to win that game. How do you know? If you're a soccer fan, it should have been absolutely apparent to you in the first 5 minutes we weren't going to win. Why? That ball that went into the center of the box for Josie Altidore, he just kind of nonchalantly kicked it over the post, over the crossbar by 5 yards, and he kind of just had that look on his face like, well, I'll get 10 more chances of those. No. You have to play every play as if that's the only good scoring chance you're going to get in the entire match. And the problem with a lot of these players is they've been told their whole lives they're the greatest thing since sliced bread. They were identified as 14-year-olds. Nobody's ever told them that you're not as good as you think you are, okay? And especially the mids and the forwards. I mean, the mids and the forwards, they always think like they have more chances with the ball. They figure, hey, I only have to be right 1 time out of 10 and I'm the hero. But the people in the back line, the defenders, the keepers, if they're wrong 1 time out of 10, they're the GOAT. They blew the game. They blew the chance to even get to the World Cup. Omar Gonzalez had 2 bad touches, and he's the GOAT. But guys like Altidore and others at top, they can have 20 bad touches and score 1 goal, and everybody just writes an article about them, about how they saved the day. The entire national team has to be torn down and rebuilt from the ground up. And Bruce Arena is not the guy to do it, okay? Look, I love Bruce. Look, he was part of sort of the founding father, one of them anyway, of the U.S. national team as we got better. After 1990, he was there for us. I appreciate everything he did at Virginia. He's a good coach. I'm not saying he isn't. Klinsmann, he tried, he failed. These guys are just, they're over the hill. They're too far gone. We need younger blood. We need younger energy. We need a coach that has some passion, some patriotism. Just give me some fucking patriotism on the field for once. You know, put on the jersey and act like you're proud to be an American. Go out there and play for your country. Do it for yourself. Do it for your teammates. Do it for your country. And if those aren't enough reasons in order to do it and to give your absolute best, then you shouldn't be there. You shouldn't be on the field. So everything has to be torn down and started from the ground up. It starts with the brass at the top, the brass out of running the U.S. Soccer Federation, the coaches, the trainers, all this stuff. I mean, you see these players running around underneath their jerseys. They got these little heart rate monitors and all this crap. You know, they got fancy dietitians and trainers. They got yoga specialists and all this shit. No, what you need to do is get your ass out of bed early in the morning, do more sprints, work harder on the field, and win a fucking 50-50 ball. That's what wins games, okay? All this other fuzzy, warm and fuzzy bullshit is just window dressing on a problem, okay? You can put all the heart rate monitors you want on a player. The only thing that counts is how much heart does he have in the 89th minute to win a damn loose ball to help you win a game in advance. That's the kind of heart I want to know about. I don't give a shit what his heart rate is. So it's just we have gotten so soft. We have gotten so pussified in how we approach U.S. soccer that nothing's going to change unless we change everything. And if people out there think that we just need minor tweaks and alterations in order to make a change, you're kidding yourself. Tuesday night, and I'm as much of a U.S. soccer fan as anybody. I was out at the Gold Cup out in Santa Clara for that game in July. I follow the team. I love the team. But Tuesday night, as bad as that loss was, as much as this hurts, it's the best thing that could have ever happened for U.S. soccer. Okay? The best thing. We need to restructure from the club level, the high school level, and understand that there are hundreds of players out there that could give us as much or more of what we need than what we saw Tuesday night against Trinidad and Tobago. There are good college players out there that work their ass off. Now, they're not the fanciest players. They're not highlight reel players, but they grind. And we need grinders. We need players who just come to play and get the job done. I'm not looking for fancy. I'm not looking for style points. I just want to win. That's all any of us want. That's all Uncle Sam's Army wants, is just win the damn game. Do it the old-fashioned way. Hard work, practice, preparation, and we'll be fine. All this other stuff, throw it out the window. So that's what I think. Tell me what you think. If you like this video, like. If you didn't like it, I don't know what to tell you. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter, ChrisWorldTV, and catch me in the next video. Take care.